All right, welcome back to the program. Professor Yakubu Ochefu, a professor of economic history, is joining me right here at the table. Prof, good to see you and welcome to the program.
Welcome.
You know, I was wondering when I got your name and your designation, Professor of Economic History. I was like, okay, Professor of Economic History, is there something like that? Is there a course like that?
Yes, there is a course like that. You can study economics from a historical perspective, and you can study history looking at the economic variables that drive historical development. So depending on where your strength is, you either go and study it from the history department or you study it from the economics department. But economic history is a very critical variable of all economic studies.
That sounds interesting.
Yes,
Perhaps
it
I
is.
should look into that. Okay, let me start from that background, since you're professor of economic history. If you take a look at the economic history, given the historical perspective of the country, at least in the past few decades, that Nigeria was, okay, this month we celebrated 61 years independence. Which decade of Nigeria's economic history do you think has been the most prosperous? And that's the A aspect of it. The B aspect of it is, which decade also do you think has been the most challenging for us, but we got out of it?
Very interesting question. At independence, we inherited some economic fundamentals at independence. We inherited a regional government that was embarking on healthy competition amongst themselves. The East, the West, and the North. We also inherited a federal government that also laid out a development agenda on how are we going to industrialize this country that we have inherited. What will be the focus? Is it agriculture? Is it industrialization? Is it education? You know, so at independence, many countries had that debate. The Indians had that debate. The Ghanaians had that debate. And usually everybody said, look, for you to start talking about development of any nation, you have to make investments in education. You know, the type of education you invest in. If you don't solve the education challenge, you cannot go into industrialization, you cannot go into modernization of agriculture and modernization of your health services, you know. So the likes of India invested heavily in education. It got to a stage where medical doctors from India were called barefoot doctors. They trained all the people in their sciences, they trained all the people in their social sciences. But here in Nigeria, the leaders at independence took a decision to do half and half. So let us do some education. What type of education? There will be quantitative education and there will be qualitative education. Let us do industrialization. There will be import substitution industrialization. Let us do agriculture. There will be modernization of agriculture within the context of the peasant system that we had inherited all this while. So, and then of course the database to agree on what will be the drivers, what will be the triggers, was not worked out. Things like the population census did not come out as and when due. The economic data that was required to do that analysis did not work out. But while the politicians were struggling with it, of course, the political challenge came, and then there was that civil war, and then we did not do nothing. I think the opportunity to really catalyze this country was after the Nigerian Civil War, for me. The opportunity to catalyze this country, because that was when we had a lot of resources. Yes, the Gowon administration did a lot in terms of providing the basic infrastructure to drive economic growth and development. But I think they also made some fundamental mistakes in terms of choice of infrastructure. For example, preference of roads over rails. You know, the fact that they could not drive the iron and steel complex as rapidly as we would have wanted. You know, and some of those fundamentals, I mean, when you have so much money and you are now wondering what to do with that money, you make those type of fundamental mistakes, you know. When you look at it from that holistic perspective, the period of the Second Republic saw massive economic growth and development in this country. If you look at all the major states today, the states that were in office by the time the Second Republic was in place, and you go and do a head count, 80% of the infrastructure of those states were established in that period, 1978 to 1982, 80%. You know, and if you look at the governors that were there, and you go and ask the people in that state, if you are to rank all the governors that have ruled this state, which ones will you rank 1, 2, 3? You'll find out that it is that basket of governors that emerge. So for me, that would be the period where I can say we really experience massive economic growth. And then, of course, the second missionary journey of Olusegun Obasanjo also saw a lot of economic activities take place in this country. So that would, for me, in that order.
Quite interesting. So the second missionary journey of President Olusegun Obasanjo, that was like 1999?
1999 to 2007, yes.
Yes, okay. And 1978 to 1982.
Yeah.
So from 1983 downwards, we failed.
1983 downwards, there was, yeah, because if you see, a lot of people have that argument that was Buhari's first missionary journey worth it? You know, I think the answer that most analysts, historians, and political scientists will tell you that it was a misadventure of some sort. Yes, there were issues, there were political boiling points, but if they had allowed the politicians to sort themselves out, they probably would have gotten over it. You know, and of course, Babangida came, and then that was where the structural challenges within our economic system, the foundations of those structural challenges were laid, and we have not stopped since then. The management of our foreign exchange started from that one. So the IMF conditionalities and how we manage that entire process, you know, laid the foundation of many of the challenges that we are seeing today. So that is why I don't put them into that bracket. Yes, we got Abuja created. On the other hand, we had an oil windfall that a lot of people are still arguing has not been properly accounted for, and so many things that we're supposed to do.
A lot of people are still arguing, oh, it's right.
Well,
Prof, where do you stand? Because,
I was one that laid it, yes. I laid it out, yes. That we didn't manage that windfall at all. I was the one who mentioned it. We didn't
because if you take a look at Nigeria and her peers, in 1960, perhaps we've done almost worse off from other countries. We were at the same, you know, level even in 1960.
In fact, I've argued elsewhere that in some cases we have undeveloped, you know, and I always make that point that as a young lecturer at the University of Calabar in 1986, I could drive from Calabar to Otukpo, my hometown, in 5 hours, finish my business and drive back to Calabar in 1986.
Without fear of
fear of anything. Then fast forward 20 years down the line, when you will imagine that if development had increased at that pace, the road from Calabar to Otukpo would have been maybe 4 lanes going, 4 lanes coming with floodlights on both sides of the road and things like that. But now I can't, it's 10 hours, one way. So we have undeveloped in that sense, as it were. You know, because things that I could do 20 years ago and I can't do them now, it's not development.
Now, if I'm interested, and I want us to, because you're a professor of economic history, despite you also holding the position as the Secretary General Committee of Vice Chancellors, that I may come back to later if there's time, because you talked about education area, which is also quite germane to me. If you take a look at your analysis earlier, of course, from 1978 to 1982, we did improve. Is it surprising for you also that the second missionary journey of President Buhari, the economy is still suffering, just like the way we did suffer in 1983 to 1985? For people that were born then, or even stories that were told to children that were born during that period, the economy, it was also difficult. There was the inflation, food prices. Of course, we know the war against corruption, or is it war against indiscipline? We quite know what happened during that period of President Buhari. If you take a look at Buharinomics now, it's almost, if not even worse off, so to speak, insecurity, food prices up. You know, though the president or the presidency will say, okay, we are doing quite a lot of things too, because they are doing some projects, I will not say they are not, you know, but Nigerians are not feeling it, because it seems the economy is really in a very bad shape. It suffered this administration has suffered 2 recessions in its lifespan so far.
Yeah, at times I wonder the thinking of the economic advisors of this government and what their priorities are. Because basic macroeconomics tells you that for you to grow an economy, a sustainable economy, for sustained economic growth to take place, key sectors of the economy need to grow. The agricultural sector, the industrial sector, and the service sector, they need to grow. Now, there's also what economics refer to as sectorial reciprocity and complementarity. So if one sector is growing at the expense of another, or is growing far ahead of the others, then the economy is going to be fundamentally challenged, And I think that is where our minders, the economic advisors and minders, have gotten it wrong. It is true that economists themselves struggle to manage the relationship between inflation, and interest rates, how to manage all those things. But you then wonder that within the context of economic discipline and fiscal discipline, this regime has not done well at all. If you look at, yes, I agree with you that a number of projects have been implemented. A number of projects have been completed, projects that were inherited, which was something that they said they would do, and they've done that creditably. But people are suffering. Security remains a challenge. It has now translated into inability of people to go and produce things in the rural environments. People have left the rural environments and come to stay in town in order to get some relative security. There are places where you have to pay bandits to be able to go to your farm. And so all those type of things would definitely affect the fundamentals and the bottom line of our economic environment. So those who have argued that Buhari's second missionary journey is almost like cut and paste of the first missionary journey do have a point, because the evidence supports that clearly.
What do you think is the most critical challenge that is facing us right now as a country economically?
Economic discipline.
Economic discipline.
Yes,
you mentioned it earlier. I'm trying to understand what you mean.
Now, what economic discipline means is once you agree that this is the trajectory of economic action that is going to catalyze development, you present a laser-like focus on that, and you don't make exceptions. I give you an example. At one point, BVN came as a way of identifying who owns what and whether where that money is, how you got that money, and some form of accountability within the banking transaction system. As at the time BVN was being preferred, PVN was also mentioned. That if we did a property verification system the way we have done a banking account verification system, you will be able to address almost 40 to 50% of the corruption that pervades the public system and bring people to account for properties that they've acquired. You'll also be able to address the issue of property, property tax, and expand your tax base. Because for goodness sake, if you have an economic structure that depends, as you well know, overall revenues coming from a source that is external to you, it's not sustainable. That is one. Two, you take a decision to do a currency swap because 80% of your imports or 70% of your imports is coming from a particular location. And 3-4 years down the line, you have not been able to implement it. What is the reason? Third, there's no transparency in some of the transactions. You are taking Euro bonds. The details of those bonds that you are taking is not transparent. You are taking loans. The details of those loans are not transparent. So when we say economic discipline, we are saying that you need to be on the same page with all the stakeholders in the system, show some transparency, and stand on decisions and policies and principles that you have agreed that you will do so that this economy will move forward. But when you begin to do half and half and you begin to cut corners here and there and you begin to tell stories, begin to proffer all manner of solutions, you now fall into the realm of what economists will refer to as voodoo economics.
Voodoo, magic. Magic economics.
Yes.
If you take a look at this administration of Buharinomics, because Buharinomics, Buhari has about 18 months, or if not less, you know, to leave the seat right now. If you take a look at it, do you think, at least in the past 7 years and or so, did you see an economic agenda? Because for you to even have economic discipline, as you have said, you must have an agenda that you're following, or you must be able to say, this is the strategy by which we'll grow the economy. After all, President Buhari campaigned on 3 pillars. I'll revive the economy, I'll sort out corruption, and I will, you know,
sort out security.
Sort out security. It seems that on the three are wobbly at this point.
Yes, they are wobbly, but there is an agenda. There is the ERGP, which is a well laid out, thought out, structured document. This is supposed to be there. Yes, yes. And
we've not been able to measure.
Yeah, I did some measuring, and as at the time I measured, they were falling way behind in all in all the metrics. But just to say the point that they have, yes,
and you know now there's an agenda 2050.
Yes, there's an agenda.
There's an agenda 2050 that also dovetailed from the ERGP that we couldn't really meet. Of course, in 2020, we're still suffering a pandemic and all of that. What I'm really asking is it just about just bringing out economic agenda, just to say that we're bringing out economic agenda, or perhaps to see some of the things we saw during Obasanjo's administration, for example, because we saw economic agenda during Obasanjo's time, and we were able to measure that this was what was done.
Yeah, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
I agree with you, Nancy. We talked about catalysts, economic catalysts, and Obasanjo's advisors rightly identified telecommunications as a catalyst. And like we say, the rest is history. We saw what happened in that ways. And so you can actually take one critical sector of the economy and fix it, you know, and you see how the thing will blossom. And we expected that the APC government will have sorted out the power challenge, if nothing else, because that was a low-hanging fruit that was within their grip, and how that will translate into economic fortunes and opportunities, I mean, it's left for you to mine. And then, of course, some of the critical infrastructure which they inherited, the railway lines, and some of the key roads and key bridges.
They are sorting some of the railway lines.
Yes, they are sorting. Yes,
trains are moving.
Trains are beginning to move. So, so there's traction in that regard. Some of the roads have been rebuilt, and they are rebuilding. You know, and some of the bridges have been opened, and people now use them. So, it's true that they have some credits that we must give to them for things that we can see. But in terms of how that translates into sorting out the economic challenges that are faced by the mass of the population, that is where, you know, I heard you this morning talking about, somebody else, I think, talking about gas, you know. Well, it's a global issue, but here we are sitting on gas that we have been flaring for the past 25 years. Now gas has become diamond in the market, and we're all taking a huge hit from an investment that we should have sorted out for ourselves a long time ago. Because
we feel a lot of gas.
Yes.
So that means that there's potential for local gas production as well as consumption. So I can't understand why Nigerians are reeling from it now. 25 kg of gas to 17,500. My cameraman told me even when I finished saying mine, because I actually bought gas for 17.5 over the weekend. He did say that he bought his 12 kg at 8,000 naira. And this was something that used to go for 3,000 naira, 2.5. And we're just like, those are the good old days now. What? And we're talking of like a year ago. You know, let alone, forget even gas. Talk of bread. Bread, a loaf of bread. Yesterday I was told, 2 days ago, a loaf of bread I used to go for 400, 450. It's now 750 naira. So that brings me now to what exactly is the missing link. If President Buhari and his administration is saying that we're doing this, but here there seems to be a missing link. Food prices high, I just can't go on and on.
Yeah, we do know that from the impact of COVID, a lot of disruptions have taken place. And things are now just beginning to pick up, but we are not just there yet. There's a lot of pressure in the communities that produce these agricultural outputs that we consume in the urban centers. Then there's a lot of pressure, for anybody who is producing anything in this country. And you talk to people who are producing things in this country, they tell you, So the young man who has a barbering salon, he will tell you that he's not able to make ends meet because of how much he's paying for his generator to service, to repair, and things like that. So the missing link really is the fact that our production costs has gone through the roof because of foreign exchange issues, because of import issues, because of COVID issues. And the fact that the story that we have been telling ourselves for a very long time, that we need to begin to produce a lot of these things locally, But if you are producing a lot of these things locally and you are not able to broaden the economic base to make it all inclusive, look at local rice. Local rice now is competing with imported rice. We all thought that by the time local rice comes to the market, it will probably be cheaper than imported rice. But now in some places, it's even more expensive than the imported rice. So it means that our cost of production has not been addressed.
So that means, for those of you that are professors of economics, what have we been getting wrong? I seem to ask that question all the time, because if we're saying that backward integration is the solution, let's produce more locally. Is it about producing locally, or is it now more about let's also produce, or let's create an export-led economy? So at the end of the day, of course, before we even have an export-led economy, we should be able to feed ourselves, then we should be able to export, then get in dollars, then we will not have FX crisis. Which one should we take now, the chicken and the egg? Because it seems even the local production, buy made in Nigeria, make in Nigeria, all those things is... Prof, please help me, I don't know.
Nancy, it's a straightforward business.
But it's not straightforward in Nigeria. It's been zigzag.
It translates into what I mentioned earlier. The question of economic discipline, sincerity of purpose, the question of non-economic interests that goes into economic decision making. If your production process, Economics 101 will tell you about efficiency of your production. So if your production process is not efficient, you are definitely going to incur costs that will not enable you to compete in the market. How many tons of rice comes from 1 hectare in Nigeria compared to 1 hectare of rice from Vietnam? Difference is almost 30 tons between the two. So if I'm producing 5 tons per hectare of rice in Nigeria, which is a big jump from the 2-3 tons that I was producing 10 years ago, and I'm very happy with that production. The man who is doing 30 tons per hectare in Vietnam is able to produce and send to Nigeria and still make profits. But I can't. So the efficiency of production is also very key, and not just the fact that you are producing locally.
So we need to fix...
So we need to fix
things around the efficiency of production. Power, road infrastructure, and all of that. Even the efficiency of the markets.
Administrative processes, bureaucratic processes, the market itself, the transportation costs. You go to some rural markets, if you are buying bags of rice, the space in which you are going to aggregate that bags of rice, you have to pay for it. You can't bring your people to load that bag of rice into a truck. It has to be their own people, and they give you a price.
So you pay...
and then you are going out of the market, you pay a price. And then there are local government checks, all those. So by the time the trader aggregates all those things... I read a report one time of somebody who followed a trailer of yam from Akwa Ibom, from Taraba to Akwa Ibom, and there were over 340 stops you know. And at each point, they were giving out money, and it was
so
like...
So it translates to the
yes,
price?
Then, and he says, of course, that he just, when he gets to Uyo, he put it on the price, and that will be the price of the yam, you know. So these are all the points we're talking about. We know it because you go, the checkpoints we're talking about are immigration, custom, army, police, local government, you know. So it's not as if our, when I talk about the sincerity of purpose of the economic minders, these are the big, broader issues that we expect them to fix ab initio, you know, which they know. So it boils down to that good old political leadership and the intention of the political leaders, their political will to fix some of these problems that are really looking them in the face. They know it.
Is it with the crop of political leaders that we have, at least that we've had in the last few years, do you have confidence in them fixing this economy 18 months down the line? Or do you have confidence that they have the capacity to fix it? Or is it about whether the crop of political leaders do not also have that capacity or even the competence to fix it?
Yeah,
and the current political landscape we're having, because I see now we're seeing vibrations of 2023, and I'm saying, guys, let's have a country first, you know. Yes, before 2023, and let people eat maximally, you know. I don't know.
As part of my own education, I went into politics as part of my own education because I've been working as a development consultant in my states. I'm from Benue State. I've been working as helping to write development plans for the state since 1999. And at each point in time, we do a very beautiful document. The thing doesn't get implemented.
What happens? The politicians
they adopt it, but when they get into office, the first one they did under George Yakubu, it was we call it the Benue Advanced Plan. It was haphazard. Politicians knew that Akume loved the plan, so they will go and look at the areas where there's a contract to be awarded to build something, and then go and tell Akume that they want that contract. You ask them, is he in the advanced plan? He says, yes. Where? Show me. They'll show me. So yes, he will approve. But the logical reasoning that came before that building comes into place has not been addressed. So that plan didn't quite work out well. The next governor we participated, wrote another plan for him, Abenue Our Future, ran into stormy waters. And this particular government, we participated again, and it's the same issue. So I left as vice chancellor of a university. I said, okay, let me go and understand how the political recruitment process takes place and what drives the mentality, you know, of the political leaders and the decision makers, you know, on what to do when they get into office, you know. So, so you find out that the mindset of the recruitment process is done in a manner that is most undemocratic. And so the people who emerge as members of the House of Assembly, members of the House of Reps, members of the Senate and governors and presidents is a process that does not, will not throw up quality persons in this. So there's a lot of loyalty issues. There's a lot of, we know this man, he has been with us issues and all those type of things. So the capacity, they have a lot of in-house capacity within the political ranks. They know a lot of people, but the politicization of leadership, you know, is one of those things that they really need to fix, to say, like you rightly pointed out, we must have a country, we must have an economy, because we have an army of youths whose anger are being weaponized daily by all manner of elements coming from brigandage, from religion, from all sorts of things, you know, and we're having to, and if we don't come to terms with that one to say, give these people hope, you know, then we don't have a problem. And like somebody said that as far as it's concerned, is looking at not the next 40 years time, Nigeria will be 100. What picture of a country are we going to be seeing when Nigeria will be 100 years old? You know?
I hope it will not be that of hopelessness. Because a lot of people right now do not have hope. They used to have hope years ago, but do not have hope. And you see that every day people are trying to get out of the country to get a better future even for their children. But Prof, before you go, let's use the remaining 2 or 3 minutes. Speak to me about, out of a myriad of all the economic issues right now staring us in the face, we have a lot of them. Which one would you want to speak about? That's the A part. Then the B part is also that of education, because that is your constituency. What's the future of education in Nigeria?
Very tough question. I just came out of a workshop organized for the pro-chancellors of Nigerian federal universities, and we discussed that. And that we need to rethink, we talked about university education, that we need to rethink the philosophy of university education in this country, and whether we're able to use university education to transform this country under the fourth industrial revolution. That is a knowledge-driven revolution.
That is why I asked. Yes. Because education is key for economic development. So,
and the pro-chancellors and some of the vice-chancellors that were in attendance were spot on in terms of saying we're not funding education well enough in this country. Our curriculum needs to be addressed. The type of education that we are delivering in terms of skill-based education, output-based education, polymath education, so that the students who are coming out have a multiplicity of skills to be able to deliver on the global economy, as it were. And so that engagement is going on to let government know that if we do not take these decisions, we are going to lose out big time, you know, in this fourth industrial revolution that actually is a leveler of some sort, you know. We have the human capacity, the soft infrastructure exists in this country to take on anywhere in the world. We just need to get elements of the hard infrastructure in place to catalyze that. So that will be my take on education.
Okay, the economic?
The economic one, I think if we fix the lawlessness in the economic system, lawlessness in the sense that I see a lot of keke napep riders riding anyhow they like. You know, when they ride like that, I see money in their recklessness and lawlessness. You know, I see a lot of people getting away with murder. You know, a cacophony of impunity within our operating environment. And there's a lot of money in that, you know. And it had occurred to me before that when you go to Europe and they are driving their cars in a proper order, it's because they know that there's a price to be paid.
When you err.
When you err, you know. If you have an accident, it's going to cost you. The insurance premium that you pay for you that has had 2 accidents is 3-4 times what I'll pay that I don't have an accident, you know. So you want to be foolish, no problem, you pay for it. And I think we have that opportunity. There's a price for foolishness.
Or there's a price for lawlessness.
And if we harness on that price, you know, the Nigerian keke napep drivers, everybody's in a hurry. They don't want to wait in the traffic line. Just mop up the money from there.
And there's money in that.
There's a lot of money in that.
There's a lot of money in lawlessness.
Yes, you know. So you have people who have houses all over the whole place. They are not paying any property tax. Nobody even knows who owns those houses. So these are some of the issues I think if we fix, we'll begin to address aspects of the bottom line.
Prof, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nancy. It's a pleasure.
All right, I've been speaking with Professor Yakubu Ochefu, a professor of economic history, as well as the Secretary General Committee of Vice Chancellors. We've been looking at a lot of issues, I guess. Economic history and some other issues. Thank you, Prof, for coming.
Thank you.
All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Many thanks for joining us. Please join me again tomorrow. Tomorrow, Friday, I guess. Yes, so I'll be here. So thank God it's a Friday edition. Tomorrow, I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be and be the change you want to see. Bye now.